Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Have you ever killed anyone?
Yeah, but they're all podcasts.
That's a terrible Artie.
It's not Arnold, it's Yarnel.
Don't know what's going on.
Do you remember Yarnel, our friend?
Oh, yeah, Yarnel. Right.
We said he was going to be a recurring character on this podcast.
Right, he was...
I'm a Yarnel.
We forgot to do all the Yarnel jokes.
Well, now it's coming back, baby.
All right, Yarnel time.
Here we are, Blank Check, the return of Yarnel. My name is Griffin.
My name is David Sims.
This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. It's a podcast where we study filmographies. We like looking at careers of directors in the macro, charting a little narrative of what happens when someone has massive success early on, and then they get a blank check.
I would say that with every miniseries, we weave a tapestry.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say
It's like
that?
a constellation of stars, separate stars that we tie together into some larger, beautiful picture.
Using star rope.
Yeah, except instead of stars, they're checks. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes those checks bounce, baby!
Yeah.
But we like to find a little something good in every movie. This
Sure.
isn't a bad movie podcast, and if you say it is, hey now, you're wrong.
Wow, we sure took it to them, whoever they are.
Sticking it to the man, taking it to the streets.
Limit. All right.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
This is a miniseries.
Mm.
It's called Podinator Judgment Cast, and it's about the films of one slippery wet James Cameron.
Absolutely.
Yes, the wettest director there is.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That's the greatest title I ever heard. Let's leave it there. No, there's more.
There's more.
Podinator Judgment Cast. What more needs to be said? There's more that needs to be said by us on microphone today.
What needs to be said? What am I?
We're going to talk about True Lies today.
The movie. The specific movie we're talking about today is True Lies.
I just think our title is so bad, and I just like making fun of it every week.
I think it's the best. True Lies is the film that we are talking about today, 1994 remake. James Cameron's only remake.
Is it his? I'm trying to. Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, except Avatar's a remake of Ferngully.
But that was the joke. I mean, whatever. I was debating whether to do that or the Pocahontas, and I thought neither one was worth the energy.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it's a mashup. Yeah, Avatar's a mashup. This is a straight remake
of a 1991 French farce
called La Totale. Do you think James Cameron saw it?
Maybe, or someone might have described it to him.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He wrote the movie himself. He must have. Anyway.
He did. But that's the film we're talking about today, 1994, the first film under his Lightstorm deal.
His $500 million deal with 20th Century Fox.
Right.
Have we set the title? We did.
True Lies.
True Lies.
True Lies. As we sort of covered in past episodes, Cameron makes two big movies at Fox. He makes Aliens and he makes The Abyss, right? One's a big hit, one's a disappointment.
Yeah.
He then goes to a weird group of financiers and independent studios to make Terminator 2.
Sure. Distributed by TriStar, I believe, right? But
right.
Carolco is
but Carolco was the production company.
And the Terminator rights are weird. We've discussed it on our
They're
two
really
Terminator
weird.
episodes,
Yeah.
Yarnel.
Yes. Hey, Yarnel.
How did we not do Yarnel stuff on T2?
I know, we forgot. And here's the crazy part. It's not like we didn't have enough time.
So the running time, by the way,
hey, Yarnel,
on True Lies is a comfortable 141 minutes, and we are not going to hit that one on this
No,
podcast.
absolutely not.
141 minutes. Come on, James.
Yeah, well,
this is a sexy spy farce.
Yeah, so here are a couple of things to think
It
about.
shouldn't be like the length of Amistad. Like, come on.
It shouldn't be the length of other James Cameron movies.
Yeah, right.
That's the real problem. And it also, this was, at the time it was made, the most expensive film ever made. And there's no reason for it to cost that much other than the fact that it was James Cameron. He only works up.
I guess so, and they blew up a bridge in Florida or something.
There's a version of this movie that could have cost $60 million.
Yeah,
Whereas
definitely.
there is no version of Avatar that could have cost $90 million. Do you know what I'm saying?
For sure. I'm looking up the budget of Mission Impossible 3, which was less than True Lies, like 12 or 13 years later.
Yeah.
And that movie has way more set pieces and looks more expensive and has Tom Cruise in it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of them because they both have that long bridge attack.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway.
But But he makes The Abyss. It's a disappointment. He makes Terminator 2. It's humongous. And Fox wants him back. They want him back, baby. And they go, hey, Lightstorm Entertainment, why don't you set up your shingle here on the 20th Century lot? We'll give you $500 million.
Has this deal been fulfilled, by the way? I was thinking about this the other day. He's only directed 3 movies since.
Yeah.
But I assume some of the movies he produced were part of it as well? Like Strange Days and Solaris?
Perhaps. Oh, because both of those were Fox as well.
I think, I assume like that. I don't know.
I think the original deal was for $500 million and 5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
$500 million in 5 years?
Yeah.
That's you sure it wasn't 5 projects? I'm going to look this up.
I think it was 5 years. Because he made the 2 films within that 97 and 94.
God damn it! All this shit about Avatar's budget comes up.
Okay, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Cost $500 million.
The point
to make
is
that movie.
Right. The point is, this is the first film he makes. They give him this deal at Fox. He goes, first thing, remember Abyss? That movie the one movie I made that didn't do well. You're gonna give me more money to finish it. And they went, oh, fine.
Right. They gave him a few $million to just remaster and re-release and finish the ending of The Abyss. Yes.
They gave him like $750,000, I think. And then
really digging into this.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I haven't been able to find much information about what drew him to True Lies or how it happened, but it kind of felt like watching it just sort of feels like he was like, I'd like to make another thing with Arnold.
Yeah, it is funny. So T2, he makes T2.
Mm-hmm.
T2 is the biggest hit. It's huge.
It's humongous.
It makes $1 gazillion. It costs a ton, and it makes like huge profit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you can't really be superlative about it.
Right.
It sort of cements Arnie as one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, certainly one of the highest paid.
Yeah.
So all that, it's logical that he would make an action movie with Arnie again, right? Very logical. What's not logical is James Cameron doesn't usually make a logical decision like that.
No.
Usually the next thing he does is sort of like a weird left turn, and you're like, oh, why is he making an undersea alien movie? And like, what? Anyway.
Here are a couple things I'll say about this movie. One is, it's the only movie he's made that feels like a career move to me, right?
Yeah.
You could argue that
I would say
Terminator 2
T2.
as a response to The Abyss was sort of a career move.
I think so.
But what he made Terminator 2 into is such a weird choice.
Sure, but this is...
So this is a for them type movie?
I guess so. I mean, it's just, when you think about James Cameron, and that's what this podcast is about.
Wait a second.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm in the middle of a point, goddammit.
What was your point?
This doesn't seem to be any of the shit that he's interested in at all.
Agreed. Can I make a point?
Yeah.
I think that was the voice of our producer.
Hey, I just added my two cents. Hey.
Producer Ben?
Yeah.
The Ben-Deucer?
Hey, guys.
Purduer Ben? The poet laureate?
I did write poetry in college.
Mr. Positive?
Wait, you did?
Yeah.
Come on, that's breaking news.
Poetry corner.
Ben's Poetry Corner.
Do you still have any of it?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay. So
did you write it for girls, or did you write it to like sort of spill your soul onto the page?
I wrote it for girls for sure. I was a tortured soul.
Guys, I just know Ben. Like,
okay, so let's just paint a picture. Ben, dirt bike, slingshot in the back pocket.
Wait a second, no. That's Teen Ben.
Dirt bike Benny.
Dirt bike Benny, which is Teen Ben.
Uh-huh.
Right. And one day, if we release like a series of action figures of like all of Ben's phases of life,
which
that
we
would be
plan
Teen
to,
Ben.
we're in
Then
negotiations.
College Ben is like emo, tortured, like poetry.
Don't label me emo.
Sorry,
I'm sort of like a tortured punk.
Okay, yeah, all right, sure, you're a tortured punk. And so then, what's post college Benny? Because that I imagine you like hanging out at punk shows and being into like the DIY scene or something, like, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I was.
To me, you're like the Emilio Estevez in Mission Impossible. You know what I mean? Like you've got kind of weird glasses and I don't know, just sort of a look.
Yeah, I definitely had a look about me. I was sort of like into graffiti culture at the time and was like, yeah, I don't know, running around causing trouble.
Ben really has lived 1,000 lives. It's unbelievable.
I mean, I don't know. I just have always been interested in new experiences, trying new things.
Well, like, being the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Being the fuckmaster.
Mm-hmm.
Having birthdays, birthday Benny.
Mm-hmm.
I
Dirt
get
bike
a birthday
Benny, we already
every year.
said.
You do
Yeah.
remember birthdays, don't you?
Yeah.
Ben?
No, can you confirm or deny, have you ever been Professor Crispy?
Never.
Never. Okay. And let me just check my facts here.
Mm-hmm.
It says here
Yeah.
that you have graduated to certain titles over the course of different miniseries.
That's true. That's
okay.
true.
So just let's get a quick true or false to all of these.
Get all the
okay?
diplomas out and go through them.
Okay. Producer Ben Kenobi?
Yep, that's correct.
Kylo Ben?
Yeah.
Ben Night Shyamalan?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ben Say?
Mm-hmm.
Say anything? ...
Correct.
Okay, and one last question.
What?
If we saw you on the streets, how should we greet you?
You could always say, hello, Fennel.
Oh, hello, Fennel.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is a movie that I watched, and fuck, I love it, man. 1994. I wish I could live in it forever.
There's some great computers in this movie.
Yeah, Ben, before we started recording, was just like, man, 1994. Remember how it smelled, guys?
Remember the smell of 94?
What a weird guy Ben is.
The best we got.
All right, that's enough about Ben. So, True Lies.
I love you, Ben.
Yeah, we love you.
I love you too, guys.
Ben Hosley. Okay, True Lies, 1994.
It just... Does James Cameron care about, like, secret identities and marriage and things that are funny? He's not a funny guy.
He's not a funny guy.
I was so excited because I've seen this movie with a new lens since we've been doing the James Cameron miniseries. This is like a weird divorce movie.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
Kind of.
So he's married to Linda Hamilton when he
Well,
makes this movie?
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
get the except because I remember The Abyss, of course.
Right, is the
That
Galen
does seem
Hurd
like he's wearing
divorce.
his heart
Yeah.
in his sleeve.
Yeah.
No, this movie he makes in between marriages.
Okay.
So now I assume that he is dating and or living with Linda Hamilton.
And he's
at
already
this
had a
point.
child with her, but they're not married yet.
Just trying to figure it all out. So, he was married to Galen Hurd, and we talked about that. And that's
Correct.
The Abyss is sort of about that. Then he's briefly married to Catherine Bigelow
Oh, right, that happens.
from 1989 to 1991.
That happens at that time period. Yes. Okay.
And they break up, but he still works with her and helps her make Strange Days,
Which
he
is part of his
produces.
Lightstorm deal.
Yeah, and then we'll one day talk about on this podcast.
Right.
So then he has the kid with Linda Hamilton in 93. So that's
Okay.
post T2. They have
So while
Josephine
he's on
together.
production in this, pretty
Most likely.
Yeah.
And then they got married. They started dating pretty much around T2, 91.
Mm-hmm.
They got married in 97,
Wow.
but broke up almost immediately. The marriage ends in 99, but they broke up
Right.
8 months after getting married.
Yeah, she's with him at the Oscars, and I think it's pretty much done at that point. That's a
And
weird timeline.
They break up, because he gets married, and I think he'd already been having an affair with Susie Amos, he later admits.
Yeah,
So it all
probably
seems
on
very,
Titanic.
Well, yeah, they met on the set of
Right,
Titanic or something, maybe post, but like they met there.
Yeah.
Now he's been married, of course, to Susie Amos since 2000, and they appear to be
It's his longest marriage.
stable. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this is, I get, maybe he's commenting on like the workaholic life and how it had wrecked 3 of his marriages. I don't know. I don't know the details of him and Catherine Bigelow's marriage very well.
I don't either.
He's a complicated guy.
He's a complicated guy, and it's hard to get a read on him because he doesn't open up about this stuff when I call him and just try to catch up. I do think, I think this is the central point. And I should mention quickly, Jerome Milligan is not on this episode. We'd previously promised that he was going to be on this episode. Scheduling difficulties, we're a group of busy men with multiple plates being spun, each respectively and collectively.
Yes.
Jarrell will be on our next miniseries. We'll find a place for him. He's overdue as a guest, and we're excited to have him on. And apologies for, once again, Urbaniac style calling the shot and then failing to follow through on it. Thanks for the burp, Ben. I do think this is the only film in his filmography, if we don't count Piranha 2, because he only sort of half owns it, right?
Yeah.
I do think it's the only film in his filmography that could have been directed by someone other than James Cameron.
Probably.
Every other film could only be a James Cameron movie.
But nonetheless, he's bringing lots of Cameron to the table. But I know what you mean.
But you know what I'm saying?
His obsessions don't seem to drive it in the same way.
Yes.
And yeah.
And even sort of the technical explorations on a filmmaking side, that are usually like, he's the only guy to be able to push the technology to do this kind of thing. This movie isn't breaking any barriers other than in how much a movie could cost.
Sure.
I also think, on a similar page, it's the only James Cameron movie that might have been better had someone else directed it.
Like,
I think
who?
James Cameron brings some interesting stuff to the table. I want to build up to my point. I'll reveal it later of who I think could have directed the ideal
It
version
better
of
be
this
someone
movie.
who was big in 94, or else I'll be mad at you.
It will.
Because
It
you can't
is.
go ahead and say,
No.
Brad Bird. Or
No, it
whoever.
is. I have the right answer. I have the right answer for who should have directed this movie instead.
This is a weird movie. I also think it has a very strange star
Yep.
and for the story it's trying to tell, and that it is all the more successful because it's all the more impressive that it works considering Arnie. And it's kind of, I would say, kind of a good example of what Arnie brings to the table, even though he's so wrong for this role.
Yeah,
like on paper.
I almost think the movie works in spite of Arnie. I think anytime he has to do something that isn't an action scene, the movie gets really clumsy.
Well, it's just the classic Arnie conundrum where they start casting him as sort of
Everyman
all-American goofballs.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so insane to do that you almost admire it. You're like, yeah, okay, I guess Arnie's normal.
Yeah,
right.
How did they pull that off? I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't even blink an eye at that, but he is not a normal person.
He's not
huge. He's busting out of his freaking button-down shirts, basically.
Well, that's the problem with any.
Sorry, I was caught at work, sweetie. It's just like you just
like,
never
he's
buy
so
it.
boring. Like he's this giant man.
I could never believe that he'd be a spy. My old boring husband, Harry Tasker. Come on, he's such a dull.
I think that's the inherent problem with this movie.
It is sort of the Incredibles joke.
Yes.
Where except of course
he's
in the
crammed in the
Incredibles,
cubicle.
right? Everyone knows, in his family at least knows that he is really a former superhero.
But at the very least, in the Incredibles, he's gained a lot of weight. His hairline's back. He looks so sad.
Well, animation helps, obviously, sort of exaggerate.
Exactly.
All of his, yeah.
But you go like, this guy's huge, but he also doesn't look like how he used to look. This sort of central issue in casting him is like, you look at Jamie Lee Curtis in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And transformation's a big element of her character and her
Absolutely.
performance.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, at the beginning of the film, when we see her and you're supposed to believe that she's sort of a wallflower, and that she's kind of like a quote-unquote boring housewife who's settled into some sort of suburban domesticity.
Right.
You know she's still Jamie Lee Curtis.
You do.
You're very hyper aware of the fact that she's like making herself more boring and dressing herself
Dowdy.
down,
Yes.
right? And it's like a heightened sort of character-y performance.
It's totally fine.
It works.
You're on board from the beginning to the end.
And it reads, you understand the coding of what's going on.
There's no question.
Whereas Arnold Schwarzenegger never shifts his posture, his any outfit he's wearing. You know what I'm saying?
But this is what I'm saying. It's so ridiculous that you almost love it because it is just so nuts that he does. You're right.
And this is my problem with the movie.
We barely see him in beaten down husband mode, and I think it's partly maybe because they don't want to sell it because they know. I
think so too. But I also feel like my issue with this movie. It's a movie I'm really on the fence about. I teeter back and forth. And watching it last night was only the second time I'd seen it. The first time I saw it, I just went, oh, fine. I was probably 15. I love James Cameron.
I mean, certainly for some of my friends, this is a movie that was just in heavy rotation.
Yeah.
A movie they loved. I've seen it. Yeah, this is probably my third time seeing it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's on cable.
I've seen this a lot.
I mean, it's a real Ben movie.
It's a real Ben movie.
Me and my friends were really into this.
Feels like it could have been a Ben's choice. Like it
could
could have been on a
Ben's
long list
yes,
of Ben's choice.
I agree.
It's all the things that we could check off. It's like dumb action movie that's easily digestible.
I agree. Yeah. I do think but it's also really long. I mean, that's the other thing. It's got this weird
It's too long.
It's the Cameron 5-act structure thing.
It does. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's all wrong by today's Hollywood standards. You would never make a movie with this plot today.
Yeah.
You could make the same exact movie, the same premise.
Right.
I feel like they do, right? I mean, I just feel like we've seen this premise so many times, right? Like,
yeah.
Maybe more on TV, but the guy's a super spy and his family doesn't know, how do you,
or vice versa, yeah.
Whereas, and you would think it would go kind of like, I guess the movie sort of follows that structure, but then it just has this weird long middle. From Bill Paxton's introduction all the way through to basically the finale, or at least the final act.
Because Bill Paxton's introduction to that's an entire act of
that's what
just them.
That whole chunk, You're like, wait, what? What is happening?
It's a 5-act movie. I mean, I'd say the opening set piece is an act in and of itself. I didn't take a stopwatch to it, but I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis enters until like 35 minutes into the movie. I think the whole opening mission and then seeing him with Tom Arnold and all that stuff, I don't think he gets home until after half an hour into the movie.
That sounds about right.
Right? Okay, then there's like half an hour of like,
I'm trying to remember exactly. You don't even see her? You do see her.
I don't think you see her until there's the dinner scene. Am I wrong about that? Or when he gets home and gets into bed with her? That's the introduction is when he gets into bed with her.
Wait, so what's happened before then? All the stuff at
the whole fucking opening mission.
That's not half an hour. There's no way.
Really?
Yeah, no.
That's at least 20 minutes.
No. That's like the opening. There's the opening set piece, and then we do see him at home. Tom Arnold shows up and makes 50 weird jokes about Eliza Dushku, and then we jump into another set
The opening's really long.
No, it's not.
Yes,
What?
it is.
What? No, it's not that long.
Yes, it is.
Like 20 minutes, right?
That's pretty long.
What happens in it? Come on, he does like swims underwater.
It's like 5 set pieces. That's the thing. It's like it keeps on
He does
extending. Then he goes around, and then
does
he
the
has a whole
dance.
conversation with T. Career. He does the dance.
And then he leaves.
He infiltrates. I mean, look, I can't argue this because I didn't take a stopwatch to the movie.
Should have taken a stopwatch to the movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I can't remember either. I mean, whatever.
But
the
then there's,
movie
like-
is very long.
There's a whole
I agree
chunk
with
of
you
like
on
the
that.
banalities of like, not the banalities, but just sort of like getting you acclimated to his work environment, seeing how it works. Charlton Heston is Nick Fury,
That's a weird choice,
right?
You just it's not a weird choice if he then shows up back later. But when you see him, you're like, oh, okay, Charlton Heston's the boss. Maybe he's going to be a bad guy.
And he's on credit. Like he wasn't in the advertising material or
But
anything.
he's credited in the movie.
But he's not in the opening credits, I think. He wasn't on the poster. He wasn't in the trailers
I
or
swear
anything.
he's in the opening credits.
Really?
We're gonna keep
And
fighting.
Charlton Heston?
I'm pretty sure. But
Okay,
again, I
interesting.
would. Now we're.
I just know I was looking through the advertising material and he wasn't
He's
present in
definitely.
any of it.
He's definitely not. I just. Yeah, he's definitely. No, but he is credited in the movie.
Okay.
It's like Eliza Dushku, Grant Heslov, Charlton Heston. No, I think he gets an answer. Just be funny if he was sandwiched between Grant Heslov and like one of the terrorists.
Yeah, it just like I mean the whole section of him trying to figure out what's going on between her and Bill Paxton takes a really long time.
Well, so we're going to talk about that. But yes, that's
before
the
they even
chunk of,
activate on the mission, and then there's like the fake out ending before you get to the final 20 minutes with Elijah Dushku.
And also, you don't know what the movie's conspiracy is. You don't really know what the bad guys are after. They're just kind of bad guys.
They also drop them for 45 minutes.
They drop them for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think the weirdest thing about revisiting this movie, and I feel like we're now both sound like we don't like it, and I do actually enjoy the movie.
Uh-huh.
The weirdest thing about the movie is just that when the Bill Paxton stuff starts, you're like, oh, this is just going to be like 10 minutes, right? Like this is just a little detour, like a funny little thing. And then it kind of takes over the movie in a way you don't totally understand. And it takes way too long for the movie to let go of it.
Well, here's the thing. It's simultaneously my favorite and least favorite part of the movie.
Agreed.
The
I know
movie's
what you mean.
that section of the movie is kind of at odds with the rest of the film.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting on its own.
Sure.
I think Bill Paxton's character is really interesting.
I think Paxton's very good.
Oh
at
my
it.
God, he is such a good scumbag.
Such a good
He's great
scumbag.
scumbag.
But what is interesting about it is for that chunk of the movie, this like middle 30 to 40 minutes, I'd say it's like a solid 30 minutes, right? Where it's mostly about like you start suspecting.
I mean, and longer if you then include the sort of interrogation of her. And
Yeah,
all
which
the
I'd
stuff
include.
That come, yeah,
Yeah.
all the stuff that comes after, right? Yeah.
It pretty much becomes like. So this is my thing with this movie. I think this movie is teetering right on the edge of being like a very self-aware satire.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, is everything problematic in this movie? And I don't mean problematic even just socially. I mean like cinematically, right?
But also
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I just want to make it clear it's not exclusive to one
No,
idea
go
or the
ahead.
other.
Go ahead.
Okay? Is everything that is problematic in this movie self-aware and satirizing the inherent problems in action movies of this ilk and in sort of fragile masculinity, which is what causes...
But you want more.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And James Cameron obviously is not master of laughs, right?
Yeah.
He's never been a very funny guy, and when he does comedy, he does it broad. It's like a diffusion.
It's very broad. Like, is there anything in Titanic that is funny? Yes.
Yeah.
You laugh at things.
Right.
But that's supposed to be funny? Like, that's just a straightforward joke? That stuff you're like,
that shit's like the
the spitting scene.
something Picasso.
No,
like
when,
shit like that.
when it hits the iceberg, though, it's so funny.
The Picasso joke is a perfect example of,
Right.
of what we're talking about, where you kind of go like, huh, okay, I get it,
Yeah.
but you don't laugh. And
Right.
then Avatar too, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I laugh at stuff like
Right.
Giovanni Ribisi scrolling too fast on the 3D map,
Yeah.
but like those are weird. Like, he's not a funny guy.
Well, the difference is like, okay, in like action films or horror films, genre films that are mostly based on tension, the idea is to use comedy as like a bit of a diffusion, right? To release some tension before you load some more back in. So it's the difference between like someone who's like a master at balancing tones. I'm not saying this as a criticism of James Cameron. It's just not what he excels at, right?
Sure.
but someone who would like, someone like Hitchcock, right? Where he's got like really sort of sharp, subtle humor and also has like this sort of cranking tension.
Sure, but go ahead.
He maybe never ties off the balloon. He holds onto it and then very slowly at certain points lets go a little so a little air comes out, right? I think when Cameron makes a joke, he literally sticks a pin into the balloon and air comes out really quickly and then they have to like put the finger over it.
It's a good metaphor.
Right? And in this movie, you're like, well, this whole period, especially like at this time, we're kind of at the peak of it, of like this arms race between Schwarzenegger and Stallone that was so based in like sort of who had the bigger dick, right?
And like whose movie had more I don't know. It's all
Who could fuck
pre-Michael
more
Bay.
attractive women, right? This is when the star was still auteur.
Yeah.
And the shift is with Bay, it becomes the director is the one.
But beyond that, with Bay, it becomes, it's spectacle first. There is a weird sense of irony to it, even if you're not detecting it, because it's just so stupid.
Right.
But like, I mean, I guess with Bay comes like Hollywood's like, oh, these movies don't need to even be good. We don't even need to write a script, probably, right?
Yeah.
Just like set piece, like we'll just plan 8 giant set pieces.
And the other interesting thing...
I like Michael Bay in some ways.
I do too.
And I dislike him in other ways. And
I do too.
His impact on the industry is fascinating. But it is crazy that Bad Boys is 95, right?
Yeah.
So I really do think you're seeing people like James Cameron. You're looking at me putting my hand on the wall.
Yeah, I am. It's interesting.
At this point are like, I feel like I've done all I can with an action movie, with just a straightforward action movie. Right. And like, so then like these other guys are sort of rushing in to fill the gap. Bay being the best of them. There's so many bad ones, like Simon West or...
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the thing I find interesting about Michael Bay is that his protagonists are largely beta males.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, he makes these movies that feel like Stallone Schwarzenegger movies in terms of
Sure,
attitude.
no, but they're
and there's the same
guys
sense
who
of
have a
fragile
huge chip on
masculinity.
their shoulder. Or
right,
whatever,
but it's Nick Cage in The Rock, or it's Shia LaBeouf in the Transformers
or
movies.
even, Martin Lawrence.
I was going to say,
yeah.
100%.
But I mean...
Ewan McGregor in The Island.
This is the other thing. Will Smith is kind of a beta male and an alpha male.
Right.
He finds that balance better than anyone. Forgetting just the Michael Bay movies,
he's
but
probably
also
the best
Independence
leading
Day,
man that Michael Bay
Men in
ever
Black.
had. Yeah.
Someone who's a tough guy, but is also really funny the whole time. Like he's always kind of undercutting himself, but he's also really cool. Like, and he just like can always keep those two things going at the same time.
Well, Will Smith is kind of our bridge to the modern perception of masculinity in leading men.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of the guy who gets us from Stallone and Schwarzenegger to today's, like, Bradley Cooper or whoever, where it's like you can't just be machismo.
Totally.
You know?
Yes.
And even someone like Jason Statham, part of his thing is that he feels kind of vulnerable and he's got this quiet, whispery voice.
Schwarzenegger does love playing with his machismo in his own weird way.
In his own weird way.
And this movie definitely does,
but yes.
Only to a certain extent.
I just think at this time, that is all reached a peak where these movies are odes to these guys' masculinities, right? And then this is a movie about, like, fragile masculinity. It's about the panic of that.
Right.
And so the whole Bill Paxton section of the movie is essentially, and you're going to be angry at me for using this word, but the whole section of the movie is this horror movie where it's like, okay, the whole first chunk, we've watched him deal in like really high stakes life and death situations. He's in a real action movie.
But also where he's just like, yeah, this is my job.
Exactly. He never loses his cool. It's work a day. It's blue collar. It's clock in. It's clock out. Right. The Bill Paxton section is the only section where he's like suddenly like in an emotional panic. And it's because the greatest threat for this character is being cuckolded.
Absolutely. But, and I think that's interesting. My problem with the movie is that it doesn't fuck with him enough for that fear.
I agree. And it also feels like it kind of is taking his side.
Too much.
I agree.
It's taking his side too much.
It doesn't feel knowing enough.
And he pushes things way too much, and all he's getting as pushback is Tom Arnold occasionally being like, I don't know, man, like, this seems a little much. And he's like, we just have to do it. He's like, oh, okay. And then finally, the movie does hand off to Jamie Lee Curtis, and to me, that's a good move.
I agree.
And I like it once it does that, but it takes a little while to do it.
Well, the problem is he's an actor incapable of showing vulnerability.
I mean, and we don't mean that it's like he doesn't want to. I think it's just actually
I think it's physically
very
impossible
tough for him to do. It's very tough to sell him as a vulnerable person. Now you can do it.
Now you can,
because now
he's
kind of old and broken down.
Right.
But
at that point in time, I mean, just physically, there's a problem with Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, whereas, the test for whether or not to cast Arnold in a role is, would any time that character walk into a room, would someone go, wait, who the fuck are you? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the plot of the movie would get slowed down by logically characters should be asking who the fuck he is and why he looks that way, then he's wrong for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, he's the least...
But that's the Arnie magic, isn't it?
That's
right?
the thing. That's the catch-22. Yeah. And so it's almost like this movie is trying to analyze his star persona in the same way that Last Action Hero does. I think this movie's more well executed than Last Action Hero, but Last Action Hero...
way more interesting.
Right. It's a more interesting idea of how to deconstruct him.
Right. But this is a better movie.
This is a better movie.
It's inarguable.
Okay, so let's get to the plot. I mean, those are the main themes I want to lay out. I have some other things coming up.
Just two brief things?
Two brief things.
Well, just about the 2 stars.
Sure.
We talked about Arnie a lot in T2.
Yeah.
But just to reiterate, before this, he made Last Action Hero. That's a bomb. The same year Junior comes out. I think it does okay, but...
That's 93?
It's real 94.
94, okay.
No, the same year as True Lies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Junior comes out.
Yeah.
Gets really bad reviews, and I don't know. And then I think, as we talked about, everything after that is Arnie in serious decline.
Yeah.
Eraser, Jingle All the Way, Batman and Robin, End of Days, Sixth Day, Collateral Damage, Terminator 3, Governor.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it in T2, but for this, really, it is the end of,
Yeah, this is the last big one he has. Yeah.
Now, what's Jamie Lee Curtis been up to? Jamie Lee Curtis.
I mean, out of the gate strong. You go Halloween, Trading Places.
Halloween, The Fog, Prom Night. We forget she was in a lot of horror movies.
I did forget that.
Terror Train.
Jeez.
Halloween 2, although she's only in that. No, she's in that.
She's in that.
Yeah, no,
okay.
she's straight up in that. And then Trading Places. And
Trading Places was her first non-horror movie.
That's 83 and Halloween is 78. So yeah, after a few years as being a scream queen.
Right.
Whoa, she's so funny in that movie. She's so hot. She's like a star, right?
She wins a BAFTA award.
Wins a BAFTA. Very.
Best Supporting Actress, which is weird.
Well, because the BAFTAs used to be fun and different.
Right.
The BAFTAs really, look back at the 80s and early 90s, they did whatever the fuck they wanted.
Well, and do you know who they gave Best Supporting Actor to that year?
I'd have to look at it.
I can tell you who it is.
Please.
Denholm Elliott for Trading Places.
That is an interesting
choice. They gave both of their supporting trophies to Trading Places.
That movie was huge in Britain. That's so funny.
Because I would even think if you're going to give a supporting trophy for Trading Places, I'd maybe go Donna Meche more than Denholm Elliott.
Yeah, that's the year Educating Rita and Trading Places sweep the BAFTAs.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Because Educating Rita wins picture, actor, actress.
That's the thing that people don't talk about is before 2000, every award show used to have different results.
Well, because this is the thing. The BAFTAs wasn't televised in America,
right.
So who cares? And even when I lived in Britain, the BAFTAs had the movie awards at the same day, the same ceremony as the TV awards.
Yeah.
So you would have Educating Rita, Best Picture, and then Coronation Street, Best Soap Opera. Everyone was just there, and it was kind of dorky.
And also,
then they turned into an Oscar precursor, and
right.
I think that just ruined them. They all start getting screeners, and I don't know,
And then, you look at something if you look at the history of, the Independent Spirit Awards before they were televised and before indies broke through to the Oscars, so they got covered there.
They made so many cool choices.
Spalding Gray was nominated for Best Actor for Swimming to Cambodia. Who would think to nominate? Right, but it's it's a monologue film. That's such non-linear thinking.
Have you seen all the doc nows this year, or are you
I'm a little behind. But I think it's probably the best show on television.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah, okay. I can't recommend this whole season enough.
So Jamie Lee Curtis, and then she does her comedies. She does Trading Places. She does Perfect.
Not really a comedy, but funny.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. She does A Fish Called Wanda.
Right.
Great in that.
Yeah.
Gets a BAFTA nomination and a Golden Globe nomination.
Yeah.
BAFTAs love Jamie Lee.
And she got a Golden Globe for True Lies as well. She never gets the Oscar.
She won the Golden Globe for True Lies. Which is
but they put her in Best Actress.
Best
comedy.
Actress in a comedy.
Yeah.
She's the lead, I would say, in this movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
SAG put her supporting, and she didn't get the Oscar nomination, which I think might have been an issue.
Right, weird category
confusion
shit there. Yeah, but yeah, she's in Blue Steel which is directed by Catherine Bigelow. So maybe that's one way she's getting in touch with Cam.
Sure.
She's in.
I would guess that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in My Girl and Forever Young. So I feel I guess at this point she's transitioning out of comedy and more into mom territory. A little bit more into 30s actress,
Sure,
an actress in her 30s.
Yeah, but
where Hollywood starts being let's get you in a house frock. You're boring now.
I'm always interested in movie star in their.
It's not fair. I just want to be clear. Yes, it's
agree.
Not a good thing.
I agree. Movie star in their third decade is always interesting. If you've been able to exist in 3 separate decades.
She's only 28 when she makes this movie.
Are you serious?
Isn't that crazy?
Wait, how's that fucking possible?
She was born in 1958. 16, 78. Oh, no, I'm getting it wrong. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
totally off.
Yeah, thank
She's
you.
like 36. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
There's
That
no
makes
way
more
she's
sense.
28.
I just was doing the math and I was like, wait, what? Like,
Right.
that's even for Hollywood, outrageously sexist.
No, I was going to say from late 70s to early 90s, she has now stepped foot in 3 different decades. If
Sure.
you're able to bridge
Mm-hmm.
different sort of cultural trends. I mean, I was talking with past and future guest Richard Lawson the other day about how interesting I find this phase of Tom Hanks's career.
You mean right now, Tom
Right
Hanks?
now,
Mhm.
because he's gone through so many different phases, and he's found his sort of new footing. He's had to evolve in all these different ways.
Mid-2000s Hanks, where he's struggling to figure things out, is a really interesting Hanks.
Right.
Yes.
We're now in like the 4th decade that Tom Hanks has existed
Yes,
in
indeed.
as a leading man. And what I find interesting about it is he stripped away all the tricks, and he's become really good at playing people who are really good at their job without any theatrics. Because on a meta level, Tom Hanks is just so
Right.
good at his
That's-
job.
That's his persona as
he
a person.
he
as an
exudes
actor.
a sort of quiet, calm confidence and control, you know? And like
I do
Sully,
know.
Bridge of Spies, Hologram for the King, Captain Phillips.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, he has. All right,
He's found his groove again. 3 or 4 of those were, out of 4 were very successful.
interesting.
Jamie Lee Curtis is now in her 3rd major phase, right?
Yeah,
But it's a weird nebulous one. It hasn't totally found footing yet.
and it's not going to. I feel like it's not going to make it.
No.
No, because after True Lies, it's like she doesn't even really make. She makes House Arrest, which I don't even know what that is.
Oh, right, with who's the fucking dad in that?
Evan Pollack.
That's what I was going to say. Jeez, right.
And then Fierce Creatures, this sort of quasi sequel to a Fierce Called Wanda, that
Right,
is not
which was
funny.
a big flop.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a sequel that just has the same cast, and the
Right,
same
and it was
creative
sort of
team,
thematically. It was trying to be their Runaway Bride.
but it's really. Have you seen that movie?
no, I
It's
haven't.
really
Fred
bad.
Skepsey directed it?
Yes.
Yeah, weird.
And then she makes Halloween H2O 20 years later,
Which was a big hit.
which was a hit and is a fascinating movie, even though it's not quite as good as you want it to be. But
Uh-huh.
it's such a good idea where they're like, forget those other Halloween movies. That was all a bad idea.
Yeah.
We're just going to make a sequel to Halloween 2, right? Like, let's just pretend like this is a Jamie Lee Curtis series.
Which, I've talked about it a little bit in the Jack Reacher series, is one of the things I love about the Godzilla franchise. Because do you know
Sure.
the Godzilla franchise does that a lot?
Sure.
Where they're like, this next one is just going to be a direct sequel
Right.
to. They've made like 6 Godzilla 2s.
Sure.
They
Good
made
for them.
6 films
Right.
that treat every
That's
other
almost
Godzilla
like
film.
comic books.
Yeah.
Where some new guy comes in and is like, well, the thing I like is this. So can't we
Exactly.
just do this again? Like,
Yeah.
go back to this.
Yeah. I just love that there have been like 6 times where someone's gone like, I'm going to make a film that's the first Godzilla attack since 1954 because I'm an artist who wants to put my spin on
Sure,
the
exactly.
Godzilla thing.
And then I feel like that's a big hit. Then in the 99, she makes Virus.
Huge flop.
Huge flop. And I feel like that's it for Jamie Lee Curtis as an above the title star.
Okay,
I'd
let's talk about Tom Arnold.
Well, I just want to say she has one more big movie.
Freaky Friday.
Thank you.
Fantastic movie.
Which
And
she
you're
got some
right.
Oscar hype for.
And she got a Golden Globe nomination.
Right.
She's so good in it. But that is a mom role.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you're right, a big starring role.
Right.
With Lindsay Lohan, obviously.
And it was a big late summer surprise hit.
huge hit. But I
And it
don't
was
think...
supposed to be someone else who dropped at the last second. Annette Bening, maybe?
I believe you.
Jamie Lee Curtis took over like a week before, and then she got like the best reviews she'd gotten in a long time in her career.
Because she's incredible in the movie.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's not Disney thinking like, oh, here we're going to have a
No.
big Jamie Lee vehicle in our
But
hands.
the thing is, after that, I think there's an attempt to do the 4th wave of Jamie Lee Curtis, which is mom and family comedies,
So
and the other
Christmas
ones
with
don't work.
The Cranks.
Right. She
Ugh.
did that Kristen Bell You Again movie, where
You
she's Kristen
Again.
Bell's mom. I mean,
that's basically it. She actually has sort of stopped working.
she's largely retired from acting. I mean,
Apparently she was in Veronica Mars, the movie. I did not see it.
because I think she's friends with Kristen Bell.
She's on Scream Queens right now, the TV show.
And she has a recurring role. She has a couple episodes a season, New Girl, which she's really good on.
She's always funny on New Girl. She plays Zoe's mom.
Yeah.
We
but
love
she,
her.
She said she doesn't
I
really
just-
want to do movies anymore.
yeah.
She's kind of largely
Oh,
retired.
and of course she makes yogurt commercials.
which she's great at.
She's a star. I mean,
And as someone with poop problems, it means a lot to me to see big star up there, talking about their own poop on television.
so, and then now Ben wants to talk Tom Arnold.
More like Tom Yarnel.
Tom Arnold. He is
No, we don't need to talk
so
about Tom Arnold.
gross in this movie.
Yeah.
He really disturbed me in this movie.
I mean, we could just do a flyby, but Tom
I
Arnold,
didn't like it.
Tom Arnold, stand-up comedian,
Sure.
right? Starts dating Roseanne Barr. I think she's out of the first marriage where she had all the kids that the show was based on, that the sitcom was based on.
to Bill Pentland,
Right.
her whoever who she was married to for like 15 years or something.
Right.
And then she marries Tom Arnold.
Right.
From 90 to 94, they are married, and they are like bizarrely like tabloid material.
Well, and here, like, the other factor is that made a lot of people resent Tom Arnold. And Tom Arnold, in my household, I was raised as like, this guy fucking sucks. Like, my dad would always go,
he
like,
was
he's
like
the
a
worst.
notorious monster.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other factor is she finds the stand-up who's like a middling stand-up. She marries him.
She hires him on the show as a writer and then puts him in as an actor, marries him.
Exactly. Like, she pushes him up the ranks of Hollywood, you know?
Kind of quickly.
Like,
yeah.
he's in the writer's room and everyone's like, this guy's not qualified to be head writer. And she's like, okay, head writer. Like, she keeps on, like, promoting him.
Sure.
You know, now he's a regular on the show. Now he's the star of movies. And then they, like, hosted SNL together. It was like she was so big and she made everyone have to take him. If you want me, you gotta take him.
Roseanne's crazy. I mean, the story of the TV show Roseanne is crazy. But
Yes.
I think they were doing a lot of drugs. They were certainly drinking a lot.
And they were, like,
all over the
hypersexual in
He
the
got a
media.
tattoo of her
Yes.
on his chest.
Yeah.
He got married a couple times since. I just want to say, in 2009, he's now sober and whatever. He got married in Maui to his fourth wife, who I think he's still married to, yes. Dax Shepard was his best man. Shrug. I have nothing for you. Why? I don't know why.
David's not even shrugging. He's waving his arms in the air like Howard Beale in Network. He's losing his mind.
But, so before this, he'd been in some movies, I guess. He's in Coneheads, not Conan.
Yeah.
He's in True Lies, and I feel like at this moment, people are like, oh, Tom Arnold is like a comedy star in the making, right? We've got a Tim Allen on our hands or something, right? This is going to be like a crossover success.
Well, this is actually, because I listened to his WTF.
Oh, I did not.
Cameron cast him. Cameron thought he was funny. Tom Arnold, at that time, public opinion of him was so low. Everyone was so tired of having him hoisted upon them.
Already at that point, people were sick of Tommy?
Yes, 100%.
Sorry, Tommy.
So they actually kept him out of all the advertising for the movie.
He's not in the advertising. But the advertising is just Schwarzenegger's big face. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, they consciously were like, people don't like Tom Arnold. They did a test screening. He tested through the roof, but they were like, people don't think they want to see him.
Right.
The audiences like him in this movie. So that was like the big thing, was they like hid him from the movie. And then people liked this
People liked
performance.
him in the movie.
It did well, and then they tried to make him a leading man, and that was a conclusive failure.
Then he's in 9 Months.
The Stupids,
He's in Big Bully.
Carpool.
I
He's
can't
in
believe we're
Carpool.
doing this.
Yeah,
He's in Touch, whatever that is.
I don't know.
He's the and in that one.
But that's the big run of
he's
leading
in,
performances.
Excuse me.
Exit Wounds?
McHale's Navy.
Oh, McHale's Navy.
Oh, I love that movie.
He pops up in Austin Powers.
He's really good in that. I rewatched Austin Powers like a week ago. He's really good.
Is he show number 2 Who's Boss? Or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
the cowboy in the bathroom next to him in Vegas.
he is funny.
He's really good in that.
And then I think it's finally like, okay,
Out of here.
That's enough, Tom Arnold. And you don't see him again. I mean, he's in stuff, but I
Exit Wounds.
think of
Yeah.
Okay, fine. He's not. I don't remember.
I
I think of Happy Endings, the Don Roos movie,
Sure.
which is like him, where you're like, oh, who knew about Tom Arnold? Right, here he is in a dramatic role.
By the time Austin Powers came out, he had had enough successive leading man flops in a row that I remember being there in the theater with my dad. When Tom Arnold came on screen, he was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And it's just a cameo, and he actually does a good job. My dad was like, you know, the best thing I can say for that movie is they actually made Tom Arnold funny.
Sure, right.
Like, I think they probably shot that cameo being like, Tom Arnold, yeah, high tide raises all ships. And then by the time it came out, they were like, we got to overcome.
High tide raises McHale's Navy.
That's what they told themselves in pitch meetings.
That's what they told themselves. Anyway, he plays Gib Gibson.
Yeah, who's gross.
He is Arnold Schwarzenegger's partner.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah, he's kind of chubby.
Yeah.
He drives the car.
He's very everyman.
Very everyman. He's the guy in the van who's like listening on the headphones and helping out.
He's like a henpeck sad sack.
But he's got like way too much self-esteem in this movie. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I feel like part of the joke is supposed to be like, oh yeah, he's like kind of the schlubby partner. But I don't know. He's making a lot of weird sex jokes.
He
just sort of seems really high on himself as a secret agent, which I guess I mean, he is a secret agent. I guess he should be proud of that. I guess own it, Tom Arnold. I don't know.
And I feel like
he's just a creep.
I feel like in real life, secret agents look more like Tom Arnold than they do like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
And if you want to make a movie about that point, then that's fine.
And I think this is an issue with the movie. Is like, of course, like spies become glamorized by movies, but I think in real life they're just kind of fucking guys like Tom Arnold.
Sure, maybe. Yeah.
But it's very jarring when you have the guy who's like maybe the real world version of a spy up against the guy who is the most fantasized, like cinematic version of a spy.
Right.
The one guy who like can't move, cannot like slip into his environments. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger could never go unnoticed.
But also, this is not a realistic movie.
No.
They work for something called the Omega Sector.
Right.
It's a made-up thing.
Yeah.
They're spies. Like, the joke is that they're spies. This is not about CIA agents.
I know.
Or
but,
what,
but then Tom Arnold is almost realistic casting.
That's what we're saying the same thing.
I know. We're not arguing with each other. We're arguing with the movie.
I also agree with you, too.
Thank you, Ben. You're a great friend and a better producer.
In a moment, you'll learn what makes True Lies a signature James Cameron Arnold Schwarzenegger film.
So the opening of this movie, which we don't need to talk about, is exactly what you'd think.
Yeah.
It's just, look at him. Isn't he a spy?
Nice
all right?
party. He slips in. All the women turn their heads.
He swims.
He's a smooth operator.
And then he swims. He gets out of the...
Nice to see you again, Chancellor. Who's that guy? I don't know.
It feels like a James Bond spoof, which is what La Totale is, which is the movie that this is based on.
And La Totale, let's make it clear, did not cost $115 million.
Yeah, I'm going to guess the budget on that one was, I don't know, a few francs.
Yeah. Because the final gross was $13 million, which was like a smash runaway success.
For France, it is. It's good
so
money.
I'm saying it probably cost $4 million at most.
Yeah, it was a Claude Zidi movie, and Claude Zidi, who plays Asterix, I know him best as the guy who plays Asterix in at least the first few Asterix French movies. He's like a big French comedy star, and the French love those movies. Like the Artist guy made a bunch of those spy spoofs as well.
Yeah,
the
OSS
117,
which Dujardin's amazing at.
Yeah,
but
they like making fun of that stuff.
He did not star in it. A guy named Terry Lermet starred in it.
No, he made it. He directed it, right? Yeah.
And that guy's sort of like, it's not a perfect parallel, but he's sort of like if Steve Carell starred in this.
Yeah, Thierry Lhermitte. You've definitely... He's
in a lot of shit.
He's been in American movies, hasn't he? I feel
think
like
so.
you'd recognize that guy's face.
He's in a lot of stuff. But it's like he's like a Steve Carell type, right?
Absolutely.
Someone like that. I mean, he's like a comedy star who also can do drama and has sort of very conventional, sort of like everyman.
A nice-looking guy, but nothing extra.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that movie is more based in... Most French comedies are sort of social farce, comedy of manners type
Yeah, that's
stories.
the other thing to crucially note is that, of course, that is like a bedrock of French comedy is like double identities and like people like changing their like costumes and their attitudes
and balancing
and their
the politics
accents
of different aspects of your life and different relationships
and
stuff like
domestic shit, like being the sort of notion in France that you would like hide secrets from your wife. I don't mean to impugn all French people.
Sure,
but that is a notion that I think a lot of French people would
some
totally
French
get on board with.
Yeah, but French comedies are always about culture clashes.
Always culture clashes. Almost always someone hiding some
deception.
Secret.
Yeah.
They love secrets.
Yeah.
Remember that movie, The Closet?
Yeah,
which was like an extraordinary hit in France.
Yeah, I like that movie.
It's fine.
And he's in that too, Terry Lemaitre or whatever his name is. Yeah, he's one of the guy who antagonizes him.
But Daniel Auteuil, who is again a serious French actor in that movie, but like he's funny. What the movie is just about a guy who pretends he's gay.
He pretends he's gay so that they can't fire him. Yeah.
And then everyone starts to go like, I don't know how to behave around you anymore, because that's enough in France. That's an idea.
I'm really surprised they never remade that movie. Like, you couldn't do it today, but in like 2001, that movie felt so prime for
This
a
is
remake.
America. Like, they made I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Right.
Like, these movies existed. Now I don't think you
No,
could
you couldn't
possibly
today. But at
get
the
away with
time,
that.
I was like, they're going to remake this any second now. But there are a lot of French remakes. I mean, it was like Three Men and a Little Baby, which was humongous, was a French remake.
It's Three Men and a Baby and Three Men and a
Little
Lady.
Lady. Sorry.
Yeah, The
Visitors.
Visitors. The Visitors, they remade that.
Which was unsuccessful.
Usually unsuccessful. I mean, often...
Jungle to Jungle was a remake of Little Indian in the Big City, which was a humongous hit. Huge.
Jungle to Jungle was a humongous hit?
The original French film it was based off of,
sure.
Little Indian in the Big City, was humongous.
Yeah, but in France, you mean?
Yes, Jungle to Jungle was a solid double or triple.
The Le Jetée, the short that was then developed
12
Monkeys.
That's a French art movie. Sure.
Yeah, more about the comedies. But yes, Ben, you are our finest film critic. Thanks for the excellent poll.
No problem.
So yeah, True Lies, I have to imagine, didn't really go too much into the action sectors of the idea.
Probably didn't blow up a suspension bridge across, like a giant part of
like
the ocean
a
or whatever.
horse versus motorcycle chase through a hotel lobby.
That's a funny. It reminded me of that line in Adaptation where he's like, "It's like horse versus man" or whatever.
And that's when the movie feels like it knows what it's doing and it's in on the joke.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that joke costs as much as the thing you're making fun of.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with
Let the movie be expensive. You're so.
Here's the thing.
Got
I
you
don't
the
have
boner.
a problem with that, sort of morally or anything. It just feels like you can't really make fun of the thing if you are the thing.
Okay, I get that argument, the fine line you're walking where it's like, well, wait, you have just made an action movie. This can't get away with making fun of action movies.
Right.
I get what you're saying.
You're reaping all the rewards of it, and even though you're making fun of the fact that this guy is more threatened by his wife wanting to sleep with someone else than having a gun in his face, it also feels like it gives the Arnold character all the support and satisfaction he wants. It all pays off for him. You get fucking Bill Paxton pissing himself twice. So it's so clear that he's the guy you're supposed to
So all right, well,
be
okay,
aligned
all right.
with.
So let's get to the plot.
Okay.
All right, so we have this. We introduce him. He's a spy.
Yeah.
He does spy things. He's on the tail of some spy villains.
Does a little Dance with Tia Carrere, which everyone wanted to do in 1994.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to dance with Tia Carrere.
Tia Carrere, however, is Tia Carrere.
Yeah.
Who had been in obviously Wayne's World.
And less obviously
2
Wayne's
years
World
ago.
2. Yeah.
And less obviously Wayne's World 2 and Rising Sun. She was a hot star of the moment who did not happen.
No.
Although she was in those. The Librarian, or is that Noah Wyle? What was it called?
Yeah, Librarian with Noah Wyle. Is she in those?
No, she had Relic Hunter. That's what it was
Relic
called.
Hunter.
She had some TV, kind of ongoing, Relic Hunter.
She gives a very good voice performance as the older sister in Lilo and Stitch.
She does. She's very nice.
She's very good, and then she sings a couple songs. She's got a lovely voice.
But anyway, this is her at the moment where she's just like kind of like a famously beautiful actress, right? She's just the kind of person who's going to be in a movie in 1994 and not even 1996. Like it was already kind of.
I think she had pretty good chops, actually. You watch this film, I think she plays her scenes well.
She does. She has no character.
She has no character.
But as a sort of lady who is at first nice and then mean, she's good.
She acquits herself. Yeah.
So Arnie's on the tail of some spies.
Yes.
I mean, some bad people.
Yeah.
Stealing weapons, nukes.
Ooh.
And then, he goes home. Oh, he's married.
Oh,
He's a
no.
boring office drone, or he pretends to be.
This is the real danger zone. We're both slapping our foreheads.
When he said, I do, he never said what he did.
Marriage.
So you've got Jamie Lee Curtis in, like, full, like, dowdy 90s. Like,
oversized glasses.
Yeah, giant glasses.
Now, we know that Jamie Lee Curtis is good at having short hair, but what if the short hair wasn't sexy? Hey, now!
They've got a teen daughter played by Eliza Dushku.
Who looks like a human hacky sack. I thought of that while watching and knew I would get that response from you. David laughed so hard he took off his headphones.
It's good. It's a good line.
Right?
Yeah,
she's got a little hat and she's holding a pet the whole time and she's grungy.
Yeah, it's like if John Connor had aged 3 years since Terminator 2, but didn't have to worry about saving the world, just about getting laid.
Yeah.
And
that is her entire character, is that she wants to get in the back of a bike with a boy.
Yeah.
And Tom Arnold's like,
Tom
your
Arnold
daughter
makes a lot of implications about her sex life to Arnie, and Arnie's like, oh, hey man, like don't talk about that stuff to me. Whereas he should be like, hey, what is the matter with you?
Yeah.
Stop talking about my daughter's
virginity. Why are you
virginity.
so interested in my daughter's virginity?
She is 14 years old. If she was 24 years old, this would be weird.
Yeah. Now, I know you've already, raked me over the coals for misidentifying how long certain sections of this movie run.
Oh, boy.
And I didn't take a stopwatch to it, but I do think that conversation about Eliza Dushku's virginity in the movie lasts for 55 minutes.
Well,
I think... Right?
I mean, isn't it sort of? It's like an Interstellar where you're too close to the black hole, right? Like time starts to move.
It's two mirrors
slowly.
facing each other, and it goes into infinity.
You're sort of just like, when is this going to end? And he's like, one more thing about your daughter's vagina, though. Like he just won't stop.
I do think this is important because that is the entirety of her character development.
And I guess when you see her, you're like, oh well, she's going to end up getting kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah,
and she does. But it's actually not as big a deal as you think it's going to be. Like, it's almost an afterthought right at the end of the movie.
But I think it pays into this gross thing where the success of the movie is he stops another guy from fucking his wife and he saves his daughter so she doesn't get fucked either.
It's, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying the terrorists at the end of the movie are going to fuck the daughter.
No, but you're right. No, there's a
because
weird
there's no
virtue.
other character there.
No, yeah.
He comes home, he gives her the snow globe. Oh, thanks, Dad. She throws that.
She's
what
actually
a loser.
Pretty great.
I think she's good in it.
Yeah, she's going to be in Buffy 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Bring It On.
And she's in Bring It On a
She
couple
brings
years
it
after
on.
that. But I mean, like, and Buffy, her character is a bigger version of this, which is just like all Tude, like leads with Tude.
Yeah. She's got rude Tude.
And in this, there's nothing else. In Buffy, obviously, there's a little heart behind it,
Was she your dream girl when you saw this movie, Ben?
No.
She feels like a female Ben a little bit.
Yeah, I
opposites
suppose.
attract.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was just Jamie Lee.
You were into Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, can I make a quick point, guys?
At any point.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So there's the scene where Arnold's talking about, what he was doing on his business trip.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like lying like really badly.
Mhm.
It's like a terrible performance. But
Yeah.
this moment and a couple other
Wait-
moments
wait a
made me
second,
think
Ben.
of Trump.
Ben, I'm sorry. Did you say it's a terrible performance?
Yeah.
We'll play the clip quickly.
Arnold is great at everything.
Yeah, Arnold's good at everything, Ben.
You're right. Ah, damn it.
But it reminded you of Trump?
Yeah, I don't know. It just made me think, especially the way he was talking, like his like sort of like the language and the way he was talking. It was like Trump to a T. It was magnificent. So good.
Yeah. Well, that's for a movie called True Lies. A big cornerstone of this character is that he cannot lie convincingly.
No, not at all. He's barely selling it.
And when his wife finds out that he's a spy, she's like, "That's impossible. This boring schmo." Okay, so opening chase, he gets back home. He gives the snow globe. Eliza Dushku's giving him the Tude. His wife's boring, and then he goes back to the office with Tom Arnold. Right.
At Omega Sector. And Charlton Heston's their boss, Grant Heslov, who later becomes a writer and a director,
Yeah.
and George Clooney's pal.
Producer.
Uh,
Smokehouse Co.
but didn't he direct The Men Who Stare at Goats?
I believe he did. Yes. But he produces all of Clooney's movies and writes them with him, and they have their Smokehouse shingle together set up at
Smokehouse
WB.
Pictures, yeah. He's an office drone.
Yeah.
I think he's partly included because James Cameron is smart enough to know, like,
You got to balance out.
Yeah, we shouldn't just have all the villains be these sort of brown people, like
The
these
Crimson
evil
Jihad.
Middle Eastern. Yeah, they're called the Crimson Jihad.
Yeah.
This is a very pre 9/11 movie.
This is, I mean,
It's a very post Gulf War movie.
yeah, this movie is so of its time in every single way.
Yeah.
In terms of where it stands politically
Like,
on everything.
I'm not saying that Hollywood treats Middle Eastern people with respect these days or whatever, but it wouldn't just have literally just a bunch of turbaned guys with rocket launchers
who
and
just
beards.
hate America inherently.
But also think about how safe we were at the time, that we would actually portray terrorists
Yes.
coming into our country with nuclear bombs.
Yeah, and have it be like, oh, another day at the office for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, and their plan is to set off some nuclear bombs.
In every city.
It's not like they don't even and the movie's not like, oh, because this. No, they just hate America.
Yeah.
Crimson Jihad. I guess this is right around the bombing of the World Trade Center had probably happened.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was 92, maybe? I don't know. I mean,
93.
93.
So yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it's just you watch it now, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Charlton Heston is literally playing Nick Fury, which I find really interesting because I'm sure at this point in time, Cameron was like, oh, I can just have Charlton Heston play someone who's transparently a Nick Fury type because they're never going to make a movie with Nick Fury in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Nick Fury's never going to be in a movie. I can just put an eye patch on Charlton Heston and act like
no
that
one will
character.
even object.
Right. No one will know. It'll just be an inside joke for some people, for a few little souls. Okay, so all that's going on. And then how does Arnold find out about fucking Bill Paxton? He goes to her office and she's not there.
He goes to her office and
hears her on the phone.
overhears her chatting to a coworker about this mystery man who she's interested in.
Yeah.
And hears her on the phone, and then she leaves all of a sudden. He catches her in the lie later.
Yeah.
But
He goes back home and he's like, went by your office today.
Lunch.
Lunch. How is the lunch? And she's like, oh, wouldn't you know it? And she does this scene really well where she talks about the problem with the printer and the ink and having to go up to a different floor and makes it into a whole big dramatic story. And it's like she's now playing the part of the boring domestic wife. She doesn't want him to know that anything exciting is going on in her life. So she's making the story as banal and uninteresting as possible. She's good in that scene.
I think she's good in every scene. I think it's a terrific performance.
I agree.
Um,
And then Arnold goes on to the major offense and is like, I'm going to use all the resources of this spy agency I work for to spy on my wife. and
Correct.
stop this other guy from
And
giving
this
her
is
the
in
D.
the middle of a crisis in which terrorists are targeting a nuclear weapon,
Yeah.
and it's right after he just had that long chase scene, which is the second set piece in the movie, with the
horse.
horse and the hotel and all that crap.
And let me make it clear, when I say that he's trying to stop someone else from giving his wife the D, he's not trying to stop someone from hiring Caleb Deschanel to beautifully lens his wife in stunning.
Yeah, we should,
widescreen
we should
frames.
mention. Well, no, this is not a Caleb D movie.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
He's
right,
not
right.
trying to do that.
This is Russ Carpy.
He's trying to give her the dick. He's not trying to give her the D.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to move right past this, but it is creepy, right? So we should talk about this.
Yeah.
So the middle hour of the movie,
Yes.
is all about this, basically.
It's that the greatest threat in the world is that your wife would not be sexually satisfied by you.
Even though the movie has spent 40 minutes setting up how shitty a husband you are.
Right.
Like, forget the lies, which we can forgive.
That's one thing.
He is like he barely cares. There's no remorse.
He's emotionally distant. He seems to completely neglect her. He doesn't feel like the weight of like, God, what's happened to our marriage? We've grown apart. It's like he just doesn't give a shit. And they often talk about the fact that they haven't had sex in forever.
Yeah.
So he's not present for her in any possible sense. He's lying to her. He's not emotionally present for her, and he's not physically present for her at all.
He sucks.
He sucks. But the idea that she would sleep with someone else
How dare she?
terrifies him. And that's where, the reason why cuck has become this, like, fucking, like...
Do we have to litigate every fucking awful word of this current sociological moment?
No, but the idea is these MRA, like, alt-right dudes think the most offensive thing you could ever say about someone else is that their wife would want to fuck someone other than them, or their girlfriend would want to fuck someone other than them, which gets in these gross connotations of, like, your job as a man is to, like, own your woman, that she's your property and no one else should have any piece of her,
Yeah.
So, like, cuck becomes this, like, horrible fucking insult.
Okay, all right. We are an hour in, and we're not going to talk about cuck
This
anymore.
movie is, like, based all around that same central fear, which is, like, if your wife
Okay. No, go ahead.
is getting a Deschanel
Yeah,
from
all
someone
right.
else...
All right. I'm cutting you off.
Then you have no value as a man.
Everyone knows what you're talking about. And the movie would be fine if it was mocking Arnie's insecurity.
But it feels like they kind of think he's right.
It feels a little too much.
It goes back and
like,
forth.
It goes back and forth.
Scene to scene.
And the biggest problem is you have all this stuff with Bill Paxton that is very good because Bill Paxton is very funny.
He rules that.
So all the scenes with Paxton pretending to be a spy to impress Jamie Lee Curtis are funny because you kind of get the con he's running. I mean, she seems maybe a little like an idiot, which is a little too bad because you feel like, I don't know, go on.
And this is the central hook of the French movie. From what I gather, the French movie is far more based in that.
Right. Well, it's right out because, like, as someone watching an action movie, you're like, wait a second. So she's maybe dating someone who's pretending to be a spy while her husband's a spy pretending not to be a spy. Like, this is too many plates spinning. Like, I don't know if I need this. Why can't she just have a flirtation with an office guy?
Well, and especially when the first 45 minutes have nothing to do with that and the last 45 minutes have nothing to do with
Yes!
that.
Oh, guys, I like that part of it.
I agree.
We like it too. It
I
just
think it's great.
But we're saying that should be the whole movie because the
gels
French movie,
oddly.
Yeah.
the French movie sets it up as here's a guy who's lying about being a spy. His wife and he are distant, and she starts maybe having an affair with a guy who's pretending to be a spy, lying about being a spy. It's the inverse, and the whole movie is centered around that sort of triangle of the three people. This movie loads so much stuff around it.
It does.
That just feels like a thread.
No, you're just getting more movie, baby.
Well, but that, okay, so.
It's like a MacGuffin. It's like a plot activator.
I guess so. Anyway, Bill Paxton's pretending to be a spy. Arnie goes on an extended drive with him in which Bill Paxton is like, yeah, my whole thing is I pretend to be a spy. I'll tell you this.
That gets him wet.
Yeah, and he makes all these gross jokes. He's very, again, as we've noted, very good at being a creep.
Arnold
He's got
has a
this
fantasy about
mustache.
punching him in the face.
The kit,
which is really
do you
cool.
remember when they do the close-up of his kit that he, like, it's like a flashback of when him and Jamie Lee Curtis first met?
Yeah.
And she, like, brings that suitcase
Oh,
like,
yeah,
with
oh,
her
yeah.
from the Chinese food
The
restaurant.
gun and the passport
Like,
and the money.
that is the grossest thing you could do as, like, a dude is, like, trick a woman and also put together a kit.
Right,
Yeah.
and it
Like
is
a spy
gross.
kit.
But then the movie is like, there's that bit where he's like, I have a small dick. It's really lame what I'm doing here. Like, it's really sick. And you're like, yeah, okay, movie. We
then-
already thought he was a jerk.
And then he pees himself for the first of 2 times in the
Oh, no,
film.
he poops himself, too.
Does he? The second time?
They don't. It's subtle.
Did you watch this in 4DX? Ben?
This movie is subtle.
Yeah.
This movie.
If there's a word for this movie, subtle is it.
Yeah.
All right. So,
But it's like the audience already knows that this guy sucks.
and also that he's not a spy. And even though the movie, I feel
Right.
like, is trying to be like, he's definitely not a spy, or is he? You know, like.
But to have him himself offer up the information that his penis is not only small but doesn't work well feels like an Arnold note, which is like, I want everyone to know this guy's a fucking loser. You know?
Yes,
And so
definitely.
we already know it, Arnold. And he's like, no, he needs more. He's more of a loser. I'm Yarnel.
So there's all the Paxton stuff. And then, Jamie Lee backs out. Like, he takes her to this, like, remote cabin and tries to sleep with her. Jamie
I love
Lee's
that
not
bit
into
where
it.
he's like, they already got guys watching my penthouse in Paris. We're going to have to hide out here.
Yeah, it's
Like,
good.
he acts like his shitty little place
That's his backup, yeah.
is like his backup, like one of his 17
But
hideout pads.
here's where I want to get to. Here's where the movie loses me. Because I'm willing to be on board with most of the stuff happening
too.
so far, as long as the sort of rug pull is good.
And if it feels like the movie is setting up Arnold as being almost the bad guy of the movie.
Exactly.
Like they're both bad guys and Jamie
And
Lee's
it
the hero.
almost does this anyway because Jamie
Almost.
Lee is so good. But then the scene where they interrogate her.
Yeah.
And Arnold and Tom Arnold, hey, they both got the same name.
What's problematic about that scene, guys?
Where she's essentially been like, grabbed and put in a cell by
Right.
some scary men.
So
and then they're
gross,
talking to him
yeah.
through these distorted voices and they're being like, did you sleep with him?
Yeah.
And she's like, crying and sitting on a chair. And then the movie is kind of being like, oh, he's realizing she didn't cheat on him. And you're like, who cares?
A, ooh, and B, Arnold's incapable of playing that moment.
He's
Excuse
not-
me. No, they're asking the question that's on everybody's mind. Did she bang that dude?
Did he give her the dation?
Yep.
Oh, God. And so, to me, that scene is just all wrong. Even though Jamie Lee then kind of takes charge of it when she starts smashing the window.
Yeah.
But it just feels like boys will be boys is kind of the moral of Arnie's crazy expedition to, like, sort of entrap and kidnap her and interrogate her.
Which, feels very gross, especially in a post, like, locker room talk world where we're, like, so aware of this. But also, like, knowing that Arnold had this, like, years-long affair with his, like, cleaning lady.
But I'm saying don't even think about right now. Don't think about Donald Trump. Don't think about the cleaning lady.
It's gross
I
in
don't
and of
care.
itself.
I'm just saying the scene just doesn't play.
I agree.
It could play and it doesn't play because it doesn't reverse it on Arnie.
It doesn't
He
work.
doesn't really get a comeuppance in this movie.
I agree. I agree,
And-
but I think it plays even worse now than it did back then, and
Whatever.
it always played poorly.
I'm less interested in litigating a film in context.
Okay.
I mean, out of context.
Yeah, I understand.
But okay, but then you have the big stripping scene, the dance scene. The
Right. So Arnold,
which again very French.
and at this point in the movie, let's just say Arnold has been abusing his status within the agency.
Yeah, is no one like checking his line items here? Like, come on, this is a lot of money he's
He's
spending.
sending like fucking helicopters and SWAT teams. He's having that French dude recording the
While
VO booth.
Crimson Jihad is stealing nukes
Right,
from
he's just
under
forgetting
his
about
nose.
Crimson Jihad for like a couple days. I mean, this is probably millions of dollars and eyes spent, away from
Do you know what-
monitoring the things that they're supposed to be doing. Taxpayer dollars.
You know what you have to do with Crimson Jihad? Knock the hell out of him.
Yeah.
You got to knock the hell out of him.
You gotta knock that. You gotta build a big wall.
Build a wall around them and knock
Yeah.
the hell out of it so
Yes.
it lands on them.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
What if Trump just started campaigning on the grounds of being able to knock down Crimson Jihad? If he specifically Crimson Jihad. With these Crimson Jihad, they're trying to destroy our country. I'm going to destroy them. You won't even believe it.
Art Malik is the biggest.
If you've seen the movie True Lies, I'm going to do True Lies times 2. It's going to be Truer Lies.
Who? That's not Yarnel either. This is a new character.
It's Yarnel Trump.
All right. What
I'm
do you
Yarnel
make?
Trump
I
with
feel like
Crimson,
the most-
Crimson Jihad. Yarnel
All
Trump.
right. Okay. I feel like the most famous scene in True Lies is the bedroom, the hotel room scene,
Yes.
right? The dancing,
Right.
which is a very high wire moment, sort of a weird mix of comedy and sexy romance.
I mean, everyone
and,
knows.
like-
Let's just set up. Bill Paxton made her believe that she was going to have to be an agent with him, quote
right.
unquote.
So they
in
send
order to go
him.
on a
They
mission.
send her on a mission.
Right. So they're now flipping the script back on her and saying, "We'll let you go without any charges."
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Women, though, or anyone really, loves when you're tricked into role playing, right?
Yeah.
That's a
It's their
cool
favorite
thing to do.
But
It's
you
so
see-
good.
No, but what works about the scene is she is dancing for Arnold, but it also plays into the larger plot of the movie. Wait, no, it doesn't at all.
Yep.
No, he's just setting up a sexy encounter for them where she can't see his face.
The scene works because it's a masterpiece of physical comedy.
And because Jamie Lee is really good.
That's
and
what I'm
because because James Cameron's a great director and
Right.
he like lights it beautifully. He lights Arnold's face.
Beautiful.
You know, like that shot you keep cutting to of Arnold like covering his face where you just see his eyes. He looks like such a predator.
Yeah.
And such a creep. And I do feel like there's something you can read in to the movie there. And Jamie Lee's so awesome.
Yeah.
But also,
It's
the
gross.
whole time
The
you're
whole
like, wait,
fucking
what the
setup's
hell is
disgusting.
happening?
Where's this going? But it is,
Now,
yeah.
If you take it in the French way, where where it's literally just like, what? This is how you rekindle a marriage. You know, a little bit of threat, a little bit of anonymous, like coercion. So you just spice it up in your 40s.
Look, I don't know if this scene exists in the French movie. I've never seen it. But I also think the French movie is so much more focused in terms of what it's exploring, whereas this has so much more going on in it, different sort of threads and everything. Jamie Lee plays this scene beautifully. And this feels like the scene
good.
where you're
It's
waiting for
partly-
them to like fully flip the script and make it clear that like Arnold has completely acted the whole movie, rather than the film feeling like it has its back, being like, God, it is tough if your wife's trying to get the Deschanel, right? But it never really does, and it also is. I'm willing to go along with movie logic. I don't expect things to abide by the rules of the real world.
Sure.
But this is another scene where you look at it and it's like, okay, Arnold's in the shadows. She can see his body, but she can't see his face. He's got a tape recorder in which he's playing the lines that he had this French guy record in a VO studio, right?
Right.
I don't think she could walk into that room seeing his body and not recognize that it's him. I mean, he's got such a specific physical presence.
You just have, this is Superman logic. You just have to go by
I
the
know.
mental thing where
It's
she
so
hasn't
tough.
considered it yet. It doesn't matter.
It's the same thing where you want when Bill Paxton, when he shows up
Well-
at the fucking used car dealership, to go, who the fuck are you? Why do you look this way?
No, but the movie fails if you're thinking this way.
It's the one scene where it pushes it for me.
David, what do you mean Superman logic?
Where it's like no one buys
Knows that
that Clark
Clark
Kent
Kent's
could be
Superman.
Superman even though they look the same. Superman doesn't even wear a mask. But because Clark Kent's performance as a bumbling clod is so effective, no one would make the connection, right?
But
Like
Arnold
that's the
doesn't
joke.
do that.
Yeah,
Maybe
fine.
He
But
should
I'm
have
just
put glasses on.
well, maybe he should.
Or a hat or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good call. Like a
Squirm
bucket
in his
hat.
chair.
Yeah.
So
The scene's well shot.
it's great. I feel like we're being too negative about this movie, but I couldn't help thinking about this stuff.
It just kept
when I was
grossing me out
watching
when I
it.
was watching it. Like, Arnold's character in this movie feels like the kind of guy who made fun of me in middle school. You know?
I don't have those issues. I'm not projecting that onto it, my friend. Who are all these jocks who were making fun of you? Come
Not
on.
like literally, but
He's
it was
Austrian.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
All these Austrian bodybuilders used to. The Austrian bodybuilders were the coolest kids
Yeah.
at my school.
Yarnel Schwarzenegger. It just, I don't know. I just kept on watching it and being like, this is the kind of dude where if I'm at a bar and there's a finance bro who's talking this way, I leave the bar.
But I also think it is 1994.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse for how you view a movie to this day. But
Right.
I just think things were different, and this kind of shit was less unusual. And I don't know. James Bond movies were more
I
sexist.
just
Everything
want the
was more.
movie to hold him responsible a little
It
more.
does, and it doesn't, and that's the big
doesn't.
problem. Now, here's what I'll say. Then we finally lock back into the real movie.
Yeah.
The Crimson Jihad bursts in.
Mhm.
They get taken prisoner.
Right
She
when
fi-
she turns on Arnold because you think she's
Yeah,
going to
Because she's been told he doesn't want to have sex. He just wants to look, and then
He
he's
just likes
trying to
looking,
initiate
does the
sex.
dance.
Then she tries to attack him, realizes it's him. We don't have to go.
Which is the most satisfying part of the movie is watching her hit him a bunch of times.
Well,
and then she realizes at the last second and goes, Paul, how is this possible?
Paul,
What's his name?
isn't it like the character Harry? Harry
Harry.
Tasker.
I forget. Whatever.
But I like that, and then I would say it continues to be satisfying when they are then taken prisoner, and Harry has the truth serum injected in him.
Which is an hour and a half into the movie, we're getting to this stuff.
If not an hour and 45 minutes.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's the last act of the movie, except then there is that tacked on final set piece that
Right,
is sort of
which
like
takes
not
another
part
15,
of the
20
last
minutes.
Yep.
But she keeps on thinking that she's responsible for him getting caught up in this. That she's the one who got
Yeah, well, at first, right. She's
tangled
like,
in this spy
I'm
thing."
sorry. It's just, I'm on a spy mission. You wouldn't understand. He's like, I'm a spy.
And she's like, don't try to cover for me, you know? Tia Carrere is like, oh, nice to see you again. She's like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
They're like, I don't know her. She's a prostitute.
Yeah,
She's
he's trying
disgusting.
to just, get
Right,
save
and
her.
she's like, how'd I get this fucking locket? The locket's funny because Arnold's got this really kind smile in the locket.
Yeah. I want to talk about the truth serum scene. I just think Arnie's incredible in that scene. He's so funny.
Yeah.
When they're like, are we going to die? And he's like, yes. I can't even do the line exactly right.
Because he's not capable of playing naturalistic comedy. He's funnier if you put him in extreme circumstances like that, where you account for his lack of naturalism, you know? I mean, that's why he's funny. He's funnier in Terminator 2 than he is in any of his comedies. Because the comedy comes from a robot trying to be funny.
Yes. Also, it's a better movie.
Right.
But it's like anytime someone acting like they're on drugs, it's usually the worst.
Sure.
Right.
But he can pull it off.
Because he never seems like a normal person. So if you add a qualifier like, well, but he's on drugs, then it becomes, you're able to laugh at him because you go like, well, that's why this guy's so weird. Because he's on drugs.
Schwarzenegger should be in a stoner movie.
You know,
that's a good idea.
That is a good idea. So, there's that line that you did to lead off the podcast. Have you ever killed anyone? Yeah, but they were all bad.
Yeah.
And then that great, I think it's great sequence where they're like, do you want to say anything to me before you start? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you. Then I'm going to kill you. And then I'm going to kill you. I'm going to use this to do that. And he's like, how are you going to do that? He's like, oh, because I pick my handcuffs. And then he takes them all down.
It's awesome.
It's I love that. I want a lot more of that in this movie.
Yeah. There are two things that come up right now that
I'm fine with the mistaken identity shit. I just squeeze it down a little bit. That's all.
But there's no reason this movie needs to be Cameron length or Cameron size. And I'm once again not talking about the budget, but just in terms of he makes epics, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, even when the scope of what the movie covers isn't huge, the way he tells the story is huge. And I think he can't help but filter it through that kind of thing. But this story demands a sort of precision and leanness in order to work as any sort of trenchant kind of social comedy.
It's also just not interested in having a villain. I feel like Cameron's just been like, you know what, we're just not going to bother with a good villain.
Right.
We just don't have the time here.
So
the villains feel very tossed
Middle
off,
Easterner,
which is sort of boring, and it
and
means
it feels reductive. Yeah,
it means that the multiple final sequences in the movie, you're like, all right, well, can't they just die? I mean, Benny, you're fired or whatever.
Yeah,
is great.
Yeah, that's great.
But
you don't feel
again,
you feel no urgency for him to take this guy down specifically.
Is this our least favorite James Cameron movie?
Other than Piranha, yeah.
I guess it's probably mine too.
Yeah,
that's sort of a bummer. I like this movie.
I'm really mixed on it.
Yeah, I'm mixed on it too. I'm sorry. Yeah,
there are two comedic set pieces I think work really well, and they're short.
Mm-hmm.
That come up right in this sequence.
I feel like we've now done the whole movie.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we're near the end.
Which is funny because it is long.
I know, but it's like, what the fuck? It's just so drawn out. There's the scene earlier in the movie where he tries to Cameron it up, where Yarnel meets with Tia Carrere, and then he leaves, and then Art Malik comes in, and he's dressed like a janitor, and then when he closes the door, slaps her in the face, and it's like, oh, she's working for him, and then later in the movie they say the thing where it's like, you think I care about you? You think I care about them? They just offered me more money, and it's good money, Which is he's sort of trying to make everyone a little more human, and he's sort of setting up that you should hate Art Malik specifically, not because he's a jihadist, but because he slaps a woman in the face. But it's then you don't see him for an hour and a half. It doesn't matter, right?
Is that sort of like saving the cat?
Yeah, it's the reverse. It's honestly the reverse of saving the cat, right? Oh. It's here's a thing we're going to do to make it clear you're not supposed to like this dude on a micro level, so that the macro, indiscretions become more insulting. The two things that I actually kind of laughed watching the movie, a couple Arnold's line readings, but that's also half laughing at, half laughing.
But nonetheless, that's part of the Arnie magic.
Sure. One, I think there's one really smart, funny idea, which I would be astonished if it wasn't in the French original, which is the battery dying on the camera while the guy's giving the big speech.
That's so funny. Maybe it is in the French. Maybe it isn't. It is really funny.
It feels like a very French gag to me. I'll say that. It's not that I don't want to give Cameron credit, but knowing that it comes from a French film, that's a very, very French gag.
Yeah.
I also think the bit with Jamie Lee Curtis trying to shoot out the guys and then dropping the gun, and then the gun perfectly as it lands on all the steps, only shooting the enemies.
That is one of those things where at first you're like, okay, I get it. And then it carries on and you're like, this is going on too long. And then it keeps going and you're like, I love this.
It goes so
the gun
overboard.
is just so perfectly bouncing down. It makes
feels
no
like an Austin
sense.
Powers bit. I mean, it feels
It
like
does.
it's so drawn
and
out.
it's so not James Cameron
At
because
all.
if you think about the spatial geography of it, there's no way it works, and nonetheless. Yeah.
And those are the two funniest things in the movie for me because they both play off of Cameron just like putting something ridiculous into a very tense, high stakes situation.
Yeah.
Which is what he's good at more than like one-liners or little like behavioral stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what if you created a James Cameron scene and then something went wrong is the joke behind both of those things. But so they break out and then they fucking, they save the day and whatever and they rush in. And he kisses Jamie Lee Curtis, and
they tango.
The explosion happens behind them. No. And then Tom Arnold's like, I got some bad news. He did get away. He stole one fugitive. It's your daughter. And it's like, oh, fuck that.
But that is such a James Cameron thing.
And Arnold, not the fake out bugs me. What bugs me is Arnold hears the news and immediately runs past Jamie Lee Curtis, doesn't tell her that the daughter's in danger, gets in the plane and flies away. Like, the whole movie's built up to this thing of, like, they work together now. Mm-hmm. She's his equal. And then the second there's the final threat, he's like, wait, I'm the only one who can save my daughter. He doesn't even message to her that the daughter's in danger.
That's a good point. Because it helps it hurts the stakes.
It hurts the stakes.
You know that. But, I mean, also, the stakes are kind of non-existent anyway. What if the movie is like, we finally rediscovered our marriage, and then their daughter's a charred corpse?
Right.
At the end of the movie.
But shouldn't she fucking go on the mission with him or whatever? Once again, it's like the man has to save the woman from being...
Very true.
You know?
It's very true.
They do this final set piece. Who gives a shit? He shoots the...
No, I think it's
rocket.
a fun set piece. I think it's a great set piece on the bridge.
At this point
I think
in
it
the
looks
movie,
great.
That's the thing. It looks.
We agree. I'm just saying, looks good.
Yeah.
And you're fired, Benny.
You're
End of
fired.
movie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, quite a scream from him.
Yeah.
Ben, you like the movie?
I still do.
Yeah, it is good.
It's like iconic for me.
Yeah.
And like all of the things we're pointing out, like how it's aged. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. I think we're just going to have to deal with any older film at this point. But it still reminds me very much of my childhood.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I think Ben's being fair.
At the end of the movie, I think Ben's being fair.
What
I
would
just
we
still
call
have a tough
him
time
if
with
we
it.
wanted to give him like a nickname about fairness? Well, he's already the judge, the tiebreaker,
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
I don't know.
Fair, Ben. I don't know. At the end of this movie, it cuts forward a year later.
Benedy Fair.
Benedy Fair is really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I
10
mean,
comedy points.
Yeah, right. It's a 10 comedy points nickname. Yeah.
The 1 year later to show that the family
tango.
gets along well is the thumb war.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, no, you have to keep your thumb straight. It's like, this is the coding to show you the family's getting along.
Guys, the family's getting along. It's great.
With a classic thumb war, they get the call, oh, cool, they're agents together, and then they do like a replication of the opening scene, but now it's the two of them together, and they do the tango together, and that's nice.
And you are almost like, hey, man, I check out a True Lies 2.
If it's her having like equal weight to him, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, because she's got more layers and more coloring, and it's interesting, and I like the movie where he has to respect her the whole time, which is what the end of the film sets up.
Yeah.
For years, there were sort of whispers of a True Lies 2. Tom Arnold was always pushing that rock uphill because he wanted it so badly.
Poor Tommy.
He always was like, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then 9/11 happened, and he was like, maybe we have to wait a little bit. And then Arnold got elected, and he was like, I talk to Arnold all the time. He says the second he gets into office, True Lies 2. True Lies 2 is never going to happen.
No, ma'am.
But he still sometimes in interviews is like, oh, we still
what
talk
else does
about
he
it.
have to say?
Exactly.
He's the punchline of a fantastic Paul F. Tompkins story.
Tom Arnold?
Yeah. Have you never heard it?
Don't spoil it, but give the thing how we
his,
can look it up.
His
so we can
anecdote,
listen to
I
it.
believe it's on his album Laboring on Delusions, about being on the set of The Informant and watching Matt Damon being handed a bowl of blue liquid with like jelly, a square of jelly in it or something, and just eating it like nonchalantly. And no one reacting, and Paul F. Tompkins being like, "What the fuck is going on? Is Matt Damon an alien who eats cubes?" And then you should listen to that. It's really very funny. Very funny.
This was the most expensive movie ever made at the time.
100. Are you sure?
115. 100%.
Its budget listed as 115. Was T2 only like 100 or so?
T2 was like 97.
Oh, okay.
I mean, who knows? There might have been some tricky accounting here, but this was the first movie on record as costing over 100. And at the time, it was certainly the #1 most expensive movie. It feels like he was just like, I want to do the most of everything and, spare no expenses.
I mean, and of course, hey, this podcast is called Blank Check. After T2, you're going to get a blank check, especially if you're reuniting with the star of T2.
Can I make my quick argument for who I think should have directed this instead?
Oh yeah, of course.
Because every point I've made is going to feed in perfectly. It's like here's the code.
Who's the person?
Paul Verhoeven.
Oh, interesting. I mean, that would be a very different movie.
I think the way this movie works is if you crank it up that much that it becomes so clearly,
Sure.
knowingly satirical.
Sure.
That's
not a bad suggestion.
I think
It'd just be a very different movie.
I think Total Recall is the only movie that posits Arnold Schwarzenegger as an everyman that works because the universe around it is so insane that you know not to take that literally.
Good call. Good
You
call
know?
on Total Recall. Might be harder in True Lies because it's not set on Mars, but you know.
But I think, his movies that take place in the real world, if you imagine this with like a Basic Instinct milieu and then just like turned up, Paul Verhoeven loves, he is himself a bit of a chauvinist, but he is also someone who hates everyone equally to a degree. So I think he would make Arnold's character a lot more openly disgusting.
That's probably true. But he would also make him more lovable, weirdly.
Which I kind of like. I think he's the one guy who knows how to...
It didn't happen. It's a good idea.
Good idea,
right?
It's
an interesting
idea. A what if. And perhaps it'll be discussed more someday when we do a Verhoeven miniseries.
Oh, that'd be great. The movie made $146 million domestic.
Good numby.
And $378 worldwide. For the time, very good. Certainly was an expensive movie, though, so maybe it wasn't like quite the moneymaker, say, T2 was.
Yeah, T2 cost less, made more. But this was
you can't really,
this
it
was
was
a solid
an
hit.
R-rated movie,
This was a solid hit. Jamie Lee got close to an Oscar now. This is a big hit.
It got one nomination for visual effects. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got a Golden Globe win. It got a SAG nom. Blah blah.
Okay.
The weekend is July 15th, 1994.
Wow, right in the middle of summer. Okay.
It's right in the middle of a very hot summer for Hollywood in general. The movie opened number 1 to $25.8 million.
Okay.
Number 2 is one of the big films of the year, which in 2 weeks has already made $72 million.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, and guess how much it dropped by?
5%.
1.3%.
Wow, zowie.
Now, of course, Forrest Gump for the time was $330 million domestic, was one of the craziest hits ever.
It goes on. I think at the time was one of the 5 highest grossing films domestically.
Quite possibly. I think it, at least until recently, was Paramount's number 1 movie of all time.
Yeah. I believe that year we had two films enter the top 5 of all time domestically. And I would guess number 3 was the second of those films.
Yeah.
The Lion King?
Correct.
Right. They were both in the top 5 at the time.
The Lion King, which in its 5th week has made $175 million on its way to 312 domestic.
Yeah, both those movies would make over 600 adjusted for inflation. They're crazy, humongous hits. Yeah.
Number 4 is a film I saw in theaters. I also saw The Lion King in theaters. I did not see Forrest Gump in theaters.
I saw none of these in theaters.
You didn't see The Lion King in theaters, huh?
I was terrified of death, and I knew it was a plot mechanic in the movie, so I wouldn't see it.
Fair enough.
I didn't like seeing movies that I knew were based around death.
Fair enough. You probably didn't see a lot of movies. Saw some very friendly kid movies.
Yep, and some of them, if we knew the death was at the beginning of the film,
you'd arrive
walk
late.
in. I swear to God, that happened in Fly Away Home because we knew that the mom died of cancer in the opening scene.
What a great movie that is. Is that Caleb Deschanel too?
I believe so, and Carol Ballard. Yeah. I think that's Caleb Deschanel.
It definitely got a cinematography nomination. I just don't remember if it is.
I think
it might well
I think
be.
they gave the D in that.
I saw this film in theaters though. Number 4, it grosses $50 million. It stars a young boy who would go on to become quite a famous actor.
DeCaps?
What?
DeCaps?
No, not DeCaps.
Young boy.
Not quite DeCaps level, but he's in a movie with DeCaps.
Marky Wahlberg?
Nope.
He's in
Think like real kid star. Well, not star, but
right, because
kid actor.
Well, it's not Lucas Haas. It's not Elijah Wood. I'm trying to think of who.
He's in a movie with Leo.
He's
Just
in
one.
a movie with Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Before Leo blows up or after?
After, way after.
Way after.
Oh yeah, like recent, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
He was in a 5 years ago Leo movie. He was a kid actor, but he wasn't like a kid star. He was just a big actor.
He was a fairly big kid actor, and then he made a fairly seamless.
Is it Angels in the Outfield?
Yeah,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Correct, and Danny Glover.
And
a nice solid Disney hit. 50 mil is pretty good for
I
that
like
little
that
movie.
I like when they stand up and they wave the wings. That movie also had dead parents, but they were more alluded to than on screen, which meant I was down to see it.
I saw it in theaters. I don't think I've seen it since. I think I liked it in theaters.
I might have seen it 2 times in theaters.
That run of kid baseball movies in the mid-90s that were really being crammed down my throat.
Rookie of
Because
the
there's Rookie
Year.
of the Year, there's The Sandlot,
Little Big League.
Little Big League. There's a lot.
There's a lot. Kids in baseball, baby.
Number 5 is one of my absolute favorite films.
This is so far the best I've done in the
You've
box
done
office
great.
game.
You're killing it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite films to just rewatch. I've seen it so many times. It is a big hit in '94. Made $120 million domestic on a $30 million budget. It's in its 6th week. It's a huge hit.
Now,
It was kind of a
what? Kind of a reboot?
no. I was going to say it was kind of a rebound for its star, but I guess he'd been pretty. It was a little bit of a rebound for its star after a few years of making kind of weird indie movies.
Interesting. 94. And is it like a movie that you liked as a kid, or do you rewatch it now a lot as a grown up because it's better as a grown up movie?
It's an action movie.
Okay.
I definitely liked it as a kid, and I've just always liked it because it's great.
Is it Stallone?
No.
Is it Bruce Willis?
No.
Is it? But you're doing a weird little hand thing
No,
like you're
it's not
banging a
to do with it.
drum. That has nothing to do?
Yeah.
Give me another hint. It's an action movie?
It was so it's this sort of a rebound for its star, but it also introduces a new leading lady to Hollywood. Ah,
Interesting.
It's an R-rated action movie, quite violent,
Quite.
although
odd.
not consistently, just has moments of violence.
And it's not Bruce, Sly, or Arnie. It's not. You've been doing indie films. I'm kind of stumped
I'm
on
thinking
this.
it's Van Damme, but I don't know
No.
the movie.
No, because I feel like it has to be someone who wasn't exclusively an action star, like a physical presence
correct.
guy like that.
Not that kind of a guy at all.
Right.
Kind of a small guy, although not tiny, but just a little more compact.
Well, it's not TC.
No, Tom Cruise. No,
It's not TC-14.
no, it's not DC-14.
It's not
yet.
Clint Eastwood.
No.
Give me the actor.
Keanu Reeves.
Oh, Speed.
Correct.
Okay.
Damn it.
I gave you some okay hints.
You did. Yeah, I just.
It's a,
yeah, I
it's a
wasn't
tough
thinking.
one to talk about
tough one to
without
talk
giving
about.
it away. But
Yeah.
of course, introduce the world to.
Sandy Bullock.
That's right. And it has some great lines, all written by Joss Whedon. What
Yeah.
a great movie. Great movie. Great movie.
So that's the top 5?
That's your top 5.
Is Batman Forever in the bottom of the 10?
No, Batman Forever is not in this. That's 95.
Oh, I thought that was 94. Okay.
Yeah, I'm almost certain it's 95.
I think you're right.
Some of the other movies in the top 10, you've got I Love Trouble with Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte.
Oh, people didn't love that one.
They did not. Reporter movie. You got Blown Away.
Okay.
The Stephen Hopkins movie with Jeff Bridges and Tommy Lee Jones. Isn't it like
Sure.
It's some kind of action. I've never
Yeah.
seen it. You got The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. You got Wolf. Jack Nicholson.
Which my mom
Mike
always
Nichols.
contends is not a movie.
It is. It
I
happens.
know, and I know she went to see it. I remember, like, my parents would go see movies.
Yeah, my parents also went to see that movie because it was a movie for grown-ups.
Right, and I would stay up late and wait for my parents to come home, and my babysitter would be like, okay, your parents are home, and I'd be like, how was the movie? Because I always wanted to hear how the movie was. And they were like, it's not great. And I remember them coming home and telling me about Wolf, and I've invoked it to my mother a couple times, and she's like, I don't think that's a movie. And I was like, it is. Mike Nichols directed a Wolfman movie with Jack
But
Nicholson and
set
Michelle
in, like,
Pfeiffer.
the boardroom.
Right, and she's
Yeah.
like, I would have remembered that. And I was like, you've seen it!
And what's the tagline?
He's a real animal or something.
The animal is out.
Yeah, okay, cool, great. 10 comedy points.
The Flintstones, which is also a film I saw in theaters.
A film that is almost incoherent. The plot of that movie
almost
is
incoherent.
labyrinthian.
That's a movie that I saw it in theaters, and my brother saw it with us, and he was 5 years old. And when we walked out of that, my brother was like, "That was really bad."
Yeah,
like,
I think-
even
yeah.
a 5-year-old was not on
I'm the
board.
same age as your brother. I had the same thing. I was so hyped for it.
Yeah,
I had
as was
so
I.
much Flintstones merchandise. I had a Flintstones lunchbox for years after that. And I was so fucking pumped because I was a Hanna-Barbera kid. And I went to see the movie, and I couldn't have told you what that movie was about. I
It's
rewatched it about
like
a year ago.
corporate malfeasance,
The plot
right?
is so bizarre. It's about they take a competency test,
Yeah.
but the scores get mixed up. So Barney, who's an idiot, actually turns out to be like an idiot savant.
Right.
But then Fred takes the credit for his scores because he thought Barney was going to fail, and he felt bad for him because Barney was going to get fired.
Yeah, okay, I vaguely remember this.
And Barney was going to lose his job, and he didn't have any money because they had just adopted the kid. But then Fred ends up thinking it was going to make it better for Barney, but
And
actually
the
made it
kid's
better
a
for
nightmare,
him.
right? Because they just adopted Bam Bam or whatever.
Right, so
Yeah.
Fred becomes like a high roller, and he works up the ranks,
But then
which is sort of
isn't
like...
there like some whole deal where it turns out like the company is like selling shoddy product at like a
Right.
markup, and they have to like uncover all of that. All these 90s movies, that were even the kids movies, were about like corporate.
It's like Wall Street, but with the fucking Flintstones.
But the thing about that,
Halle Berry plays Sharon Stone.
and yes, yeah, and doesn't it have 9 credited writers or something crazy
Probably.
like that? Like a famously large amount of credited writers.
It's from the director of Problem Child. It was like a huge Steven Spielberg production.
Yeah, but the thing about the movie is it looks insane.
Yeah.
You'd never see a movie that looked like that.
No.
Those production values are kind of amazing.
Incredible. They built the whole fucking town of Bedrock.
It's very
They
strange.
also, there was so much merchandise for that movie, and I had like all of it because they were convinced it was like coming the summer after, or 2 summers after Jurassic Park. No, it was the summer after. It was 1 year after. They thought it was going to be as big of a merchandising bonanza as Jurassic Park because they were like, we got dinosaurs and humans.
Sure.
And there were these articles of they were like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for merchandisers. Like, not since Batman is there a movie that's going to blow up this much.
I'm cutting off your...
I had the lunchbox and everything. I just keep mentioning the lunchbox because it was cool. It looked like Fred's little lunch pail.
That's enough. Baby's Day Out, Wyatt Earp, Schindler's List.
Hey,
That's
but are we pretty much almost at the end of our episode?
We are done.
This is the end of our episode.
So
yeah.
very quickly,
this
is just a new segment. We're gonna call it On the Record.
On the record, okay.
And the reason why is because I thought, hey, we have the election coming up, right?
Sure.
We have predicted how the election will turn out, and that'll be in a future episode.
Yep.
So I just want to point out that I've also mentioned one of my favorite films of all time is The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray. This movie is very much in the same territory, and I just want on the record to say, man, wait till you guys see The Man Who Knew Too Little. You're going to be blown away. It's so much better than this film.
Okay.
I agree.
Why is that called On the Record?
Because
just say because I want it on the record.
Because when we record the episode and you guys watch the movie, I'm going to play this again, and you're going to listen to me say this, what I'm saying now, in the future.
But the difference is with calling the election, that's like a thing where there's like a, unless you're Donald Trump, there's a solid result, which we can all agree with. You're calling your shot that you think people will like one movie more.
I just want to say every day that I think about this election, I do think about the panic that was in our voices when we recorded that bonus episode that will air in a few weeks, that was going to air after the election. And I just want Donald Trump to lose so that I can listen to that and laugh.
Me too.
And that's how I want it to be.
By the time this episode comes out, we're going to be like just a week away pretty much, right?
This episode comes out and then election day is like 8 days from then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Terrifying.
All right. Yeah. So the Titanic Part 1 is
Doc's in between.
Huh?
Doc's in between. Oh, the Doc's come after you. You're 100% right. Okay, so get ready. We've recorded this one, so there's no threat of a false guest promise here.
Ha-ha!
Big announcement. Titanic's a 2-parter, baby.
Yeah. Titanic's 2 parts, and
much like the VHS, we had to split it into 2 parts.
2 long episodes, and I feel like we didn't get to everything.
No, it's crazy. There's too much to talk about that movie.
There's a baby in that one. It's crazy.
Yeah, and 2 past favorite guests coming back.
Yep.
We'll leave them as a surprise, but those episodes are in the can, and they're nutty, baby.
Yeah, if anyone's a big fan of the series, though, they'll have guessed who's going to be on this episode.
Probably.
Because they've, on this show, I think, expressed
asked to talk about Titanic.
Yes. Okay, so...
That's next week.
That's next week. This is True Lies on the Record with Ben Hosley. Right? That's the name of the podcast?
Yeah.
And we're all wishing you a goodbye, Fennel, and... Right? Any last thoughts, Griffin? I'm putting my finger in the air.
No, I think I'd like to see the Verhoeven version of this movie. It's still more interesting. I don't like it that much, but it's Cameron. There's always interesting stuff going on. There's immaculate craft, and I just think this was sort of a breaking point for Arnold in terms of what you could get away with having him do as a leading man, how you could present him.
I wanted brief final thoughts, my friend.
That was my final thought.
Okay. Ben?
Ben is sighing.
Great horsework.
Agreed. Agreed.
But did you hear Ben just go, oh.
Yeah, I did.
That was interesting.
That's how we all feel, all the time. And as always, all the time, for me at least, I'll speak for me, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And as always,
yes?
Goodbye, everybody, from your friend Yarnel.
At least you didn't say cuck.
Cuck.
This has been a UCB Comedy production. Check out our other shows on the UCB Comedy Podcast Network.